Hey everyone, this video is to help you with solving rational expressions. So we have two different methods when solving rational expressions. Our first one is called the proportion method, which is when we condense into a proportion and cross multiply to solve. You're going to use this when you have one rational expression on either side of the equation. If you have multiple, we're going to have a different method that we'll talk about in a later video. So remember, when we solve proportions, we solve it by cross multiplying. That means I take the numerator on the left and I multiply it by the denominator on the right. So that's 3 times 2a plus 1. And then I do an equal sign, and then I do the denominator on the left with the numerator on the right. 7 times a minus 8. And you'll notice as I do these, I oftentimes put parentheses either at this step or at the very beginning to remind myself to make sure that I'm fully distributing and correctly multiplying here. So when I do this, I'm going to get 6a plus 3 equals 7a minus 56. I want to get all of my variables on one side, so I'm going to subtract 6a from both sides. So I'm going to be left with 3 on the left, and then 7a minus 6a, a minus 56. Last thing that I do is I add my 56 over, and I'm going to get to a equals 59. The one thing you have to be really careful of these types of problems is you want to make sure you check your solutions every single time. If they don't work out, then you would say you have no solution. So to check, all I'm going to do is plug it back into the original problem and make sure it simplifies the same on both sides. Okay, so on the left, I'm going to get 3 over 51, which is going to reduce down to 1 over 17. On the right side of this, I'm going to get 7 over 119. And then once again, this is going to reduce down to 1 over 17. So because this works out, we can go back and box in our answer because we know it's correct. Same idea for the second problem. I'm going to put parentheses at the beginning to remind me when I'm cross multiplying. So when I cross multiply here, y times y plus 5 is going to give me y squared plus 5y. And then on the other side, 3 times y plus 8 is 3y plus 24. What you should notice about this problem is you see a y squared, you have a y term, and you have a constant term. That should tell you that you need to be solving this by factoring, which means I need to move everything over to the other side. My y squared is going to stay positive. I'm going to subtract the 3y over to move it, so 5y minus 3y is going to give us 2y. And then I'm going to subtract the 24 and set equal to 0 because I've now moved everything over from the right side. So to factor this, I have a trinomial. It's going to factor as 2 binomials. The only way to get to y squared is y times y. You are multiplying to a negative 24, so that means your signs are different. And the two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add the positive 2 are 6 and negative 4. This first one is going to give me a y value of negative 6. And the second one's going to give me a y value of positive 4. Now, you have two solutions here. You have to make sure you check both solutions. I'm going to check negative 6 to start. That's negative 6 divided by 3 equals negative 6 plus 8 over negative 6 plus 5. Negative 6 over 3 is going to reduce down to negative 2. And on the right side, I have 2 over negative 1, which also reduces to negative 2. So we're good with negative 6. I also need to check and make sure that 4 works. I have 4 over 3, which I can't reduce, equals 4 plus 8 over 4 plus 5. So 4 thirds equals 12 ninths. 12 ninths does reduce down to 4 thirds, so we get that a check as well, and we get to box in both answers. It may happen when you have multiple answers that you find they both work, one works and one doesn't, or you can even at times find that neither of them will work. All right, and for our last example, same thing. I'm going to start with parentheses. And I'm going to cross multiply. Now the cross multiplying here is actually going to require you to FOIL this. So 2x times x is going to give us 2x squared. 2x times 4 is going to give us 8x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. And that equals 2 times 3, or 6. Once again, you should note right away that you're going to have to factor this. So I'm going to combine what I can. That means I have 2x squared plus 5x. I'm also going to have to move the 6 over. So that's going to be minus 18 equals 0. So I'm going to have to use my guess and check methods. I have 2x and x at the beginning. And then I want to think about my factors of 18. That's 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. And we have to find some sort of way that these are going to add up, that are going to multiply to negative 18, but add up to positive 5. 2 and 9 are going to be the special ones. We're going to have positive 9, 2x plus 9, and x minus 2. That's my guess. My check part of this is to see what happens if I were to multiply. So when I FOIL, the 2x times negative 2 gives us negative 4x. The 9 times x gives us positive 9x. That's how we get that middle term of 5x. So you want to always check the two combinations of FOILing that give you that middle term. So for the first one, I'm going to get an x value of negative 9/2. And for the second one, I'm going to get an x value of 2. Yes, you still need to check them. When you have something a little bit more complicated, such as negative 9/2, it is totally fine if you want to plug that into a calculator to check it, because it's a little bit complicated when you do it by hand. We'll do it, but just know that you can always do that. I'm going to check the easier one first. Actually, let's just dive into the more difficult one. So I'm going to check negative 9 over 2. So that's 2 times negative 9 over 2 minus 3 over 2 equals 3 over negative 9 over 2 plus 4. So what I have in this in my first numerator, 2 times negative 9 over 2 is negative 9, because the 2's cancel. Negative 9 minus 3 is negative 12 divided by 2. On the right over here, negative 9 over 2 is really negative 4.5. So plus 4 is going to give us 3 over negative 1/2. Alright, what I'm going to have here, negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Remember, for this step, when you divide by a fraction, you're multiplying by the reciprocal. So 3 times negative 2, which is negative 6. This one works. And then I also want to make sure that I check and see if 2 works. So that's 2 times 2 minus 3 over 2 equals 3 over 2 plus 4. What I have in my numerator here, 2 times 2 is 4, minus 3 is 1 over 2 equals 3 over 6. They reduce to the same fraction. So 2 works as well.